A young blonde was on vacation in the depths of Louisiana. She wanted a pair of genuine alligator shoes, but was very reluctant to pay the high prices the local vendors were asking. After becoming very frustrated with the no-haggle attitude of one of the shopkeepers, the blonde shouted, "Maybe I'll just go out and catch my own alligator so I can get a pair of shoes at a reasonable price." The shopkeeper said, "By all means, be my guest. Maybe you'll luck out and catch yourself a big one." Determined, the blonde turned and headed for the swamps, set on catching herself an alligator. Later in the day, the shopkeeper is driving home when he spots the young woman standing waist-deep in the water, shotgun in hand. Just then, he sees a huge 9-foot alligator swimming quickly toward her. She takes aim, kills the creature, and with a great deal of effort hauls it onto the swamp bank. Lying nearby were several more of the dead creatures. The shopkeeper watches in amazement. Just then, the blonde flips the alligator on its back and, frustrated, shouts out, "Damn! This one isn't wearing any shoes either." Two very elderly couples bump into each other in the street. Jack says, "Hi there, George. How are you?" George says, "Great. We've just been to that new memory clinic. They teach you how to remember things using word association. It's really good." Jack asks, "Really? What's the name of the clinic?" George thinks for a moment and then says, "Let me see. What do you call that flower with a thorny stem?" Jack says, "A rose?" "Ah, yes, that's it." George turns to his wife. "Rose, what's the name of that clinic?" An older man comes into a restaurant, sits at his usual table, and orders the usual matzo ball soup. The waiter sets it down in front of him and stands back to watch him enjoy it. But the man just sits there. "Is there something wrong?" the waiter asked. "I can't eat this soup," the man replied. "Is it too hot?" the waiter asked. "No." "Too cold?" "No." "Too salty?" "No." The waiter calls for the maître d' and for the chef, and each goes through the same routine. "Too hot? Too cold? No, no, no." The man tried to work out what the huge problem was that was stopping him from eating his soup, when finally the chief, at his wit's end, said, "Sir, I will taste the soup myself. Where is the spoon?" "Aha, that would be the problem," says the man. A husband and wife were dining at a 5-star restaurant. When their food arrived, the husband said, "Our food has arrived. Let's eat." His wife reminded him, "Honey, you always say your prayers at home before your dinner." Her husband replied, "That's at home, my dear. Here, the chef knows how to cook." A man is dining in a fancy restaurant, and there is a gorgeous redhead sitting at the next table. He has been checking her out since he sat down, but lacks the nerve to talk with her. Suddenly she sneezes, and her glass eye comes flying out of its socket towards the man. He reflexively reaches out, grabs it out of the air, and hands it back. "Oh my, I am so sorry," the woman says as she pops her eye back in place. "Let me buy your dinner to make it up to you," she says. They enjoy a wonderful dinner together, and afterwards the theater is followed by drinks. They talk, they laugh, she shares her deepest dreams and he shares his. She listens. After paying for everything, she asks him if he would like to come to her place for a nightcap and stay for breakfast. The next morning, she cooks a gourmet meal with all the trimmings. The guy is amazed. Everything had been so incredible. "You know," he said, "you are the perfect woman. Are you this nice to every guy you meet?" "No," she replies. "You just happened to catch my eye." A man awakes to find himself lying by a lonely country road with no memory of who he is and how he got there. Then a genie appears. "What is your third wish, master?" the genie says. Confused, the man feebly asks, "My wish? Who are you, and why can't I remember anything?" "I am your genie," the genie replies. "You are here because your second wish was to forget who you were and be taken far away from everything you once knew. "Now, my master, I'm in haste, so tell me, what is your final wish?" "My final wish," answers the man, "is to remember everything about who I am." The genie starts laughing. "What's so funny?" asks the man. The genie replies, "That was your first wish." A guy walks into a bar and tells the bartender, "If I show you a wild trick, will you give me a free drink?" The bartender shrugs. "Sure, why not?" The guy reaches into his pocket and pulls out a tiny rat. Then out of the other pocket, he pulls a teeny tiny piano. The rat stretches, cracks his knuckles, and starts playing the blues like a rodent Ray Charles. Stunned, the bartender pours him a free drink. After finishing it, the guy says, "Now, if I show you an even better trick, do I drink free all night?" "Buddy, if you can top that, you're drinking on me till closing," the bartender replies. The man pulls the rat and piano out again, and this time reaches into his coat and pulls out a small bullfrog. The frog clears his throat and starts belting out soulful blues lyrics. The rat's playing, the frog singing, the bar is dead silent in awe. A girl sitting nearby gasps, comes closer and says, "That's incredible! Can it kiss too?" The guy smiles, picks up the frog, and the frog gives her a quick kiss. Suddenly, a man rushes up and says, "I'll give you $10,000 for that frog." The guy says, "Nope, not for sale." $25,000. Nope. $50,000. Cash. Deal. The bartender's jaw drops. "Are you crazy? That frog was a gold mine. Why'd you sell him?" The man smirks and says, "Relax. The frog can't sing. The rat's a ventriloquist." Jay was applying for a job. "Does the company pay for my hospitalization?" he asked. "No, you pay for it," the personnel director said. "We take it out of your salary each month." "The last place I worked, they paid for it," Jay said. "That's unusual," the personnel man said. "How much vacation did you get?" 6 weeks, Jay replied. "Did you get a bonus?" the personnel man asked. "Yes," Jay said. "Not only that, they gave us an annual bonus, sent us a turkey on Thanksgiving, gave us the use of a company car, and threw a big barbecue for us each year." "Why did you leave?" asked the personnel director. "They went busted," Jay said. A hunter shoots a deer and is pulling it back to his truck. A farmer passes by and says, "Hey, you shot that deer on my property. That makes that deer mine." The hunter says, "No way. I tracked it, I shot it, it's mine." The farmer says, Okay, we'll settle this the old way." "The old way?" "Yes. We'll take turns kicking each other in the nuts, and the first guy who can't take it anymore loses. The winner gets the deer." The hunter thinks about this, and he says, "Okay, let's do it." The farmer says, "Okay, let me go first." He takes a big wind-up and just nails the hunter right in the nuts with his big, dirty farmer boots. The hunter doubles over in pain, huffing and puffing for a few minutes. He finally gets up, still panting, and says, Okay, I'm still in. My turn." The farmer says, "Nah, you can keep the deer." Jack decided to go skiing with his buddy Bob. They loaded up in Jack's minivan and headed north. After driving for a few hours, they got caught in a terrible blizzard. They pulled into a nearby farm and asked the attractive lady who answered the door if they could spend the night. "I realize it's terrible weather out there, and I have this huge house all to myself, but I'm recently widowed," she explained. "I'm afraid neighbors will talk if I let you stay in my house." "Don't worry," Jack said. "We'll be happy to sleep in the barn. And if the weather breaks, we'll be gone at first light." The lady agreed, and the two men found their way to the barn and settled in for the night. Come morning, the weather had cleared and they got on their way. They enjoyed a great weekend of skiing. About 9 months later, Jack got an unexpected letter from an attorney. It took him a few minutes to figure it out, but he finally determined that it was from the attorney of that attractive widow he had met on the ski weekend. He dropped in on his friend Bob and asked, Bob, do you remember that good-looking widow from— Yes, I do. Did you happen to get up in the middle of the night, go up to the house and pay her a visit? Yes, said Bob, a little embarrassed about being found out. I have to admit that I did. And did you happen to use my name instead of telling her your name? Bob's face turned red, and he said, Yeah, sorry, buddy. I'm afraid I did. Why do you ask? She just died and left me everything. A bra, car battery, and some jumper cables walk into a bar. The car battery and jumper cables go find a seat while the bra asks the bartender for 3 beers. The bartender replies, I'm not serving you. You're obviously off your tits, and your 2 mates look like they're about to start something. A blonde walked into a flight school determined to learn how to fly. With all the planes in use, the owner offered to teach her how to pilot a solo helicopter instead. He showed her the basics, started the helicopter for her, and sent her off. After climbing to 1,000 feet, she radioed in, I'm doing great. I love it up here. The view is amazing, and I'm getting the hang of this. At 2,000 feet, she checked in again, saying how easy it was and how much fun she was having. The instructor smiled, but as she climbed to 3,000 feet, he started to get worried since she hadn't radioed in. Minutes later, he watched in horror as she crashed about half a mile away. He rushed to the scene and pulled her from the wreckage. When he asked what happened, she replied, I don't know. Everything was going fine, but as I went higher, it started getting cold. I can't really remember much after I turned off the big fan. Carolyn, a rich blonde, buys a new automatic Jaguar XKR Sport. She drives the car perfectly well during the day, but at night, the car does not move at all. After trying to drive the car at night for a week, but without success, she angrily calls the Jaguar dealers, and they send out a technician to her. The technician examines the car and determines that there is nothing wrong with it. So he turns to the blonde and asks, Ma'am, are you sure you are using the right gears? Angry, the rich blonde replies, How on earth could you ask such a question? I'm not stupid, you know. Of course, I am using the right gears. I use D during the day and N at night. Cop on horse says to a little girl on a bike, Did Santa get you that? Yes, replies the little girl. Well, tell him to put a reflector light on it next year and fines her $5. The little girl looks up at the cop and says, Nice horse you've got there. Did Santa bring you that? The cop chuckles and replies, He sure did. Well, says the little girl, next year tell Santa that the dick goes under the horse, not on top of it. A husband asks his wife, Will you marry after I die? The wife responds, No, I will live with my sister. The wife asks him back, Will you marry after I die? The husband responds, No, I will also live with your sister. An elderly couple was celebrating their 60th anniversary. The couple had married as childhood sweethearts and had moved back to their old neighborhood after they retired. Holding hands, they walked back to their old school. It was not locked, so they entered and found the old desk they'd shared, where Jerry had carved, I love you, Sally. On their way back home, a bag of money fell out of an armored car, practically landing at their feet. Sally quickly picked it up, and not sure what to do with it, they took it home. There, she counted the money, $50,000. Jerry said, We've got to give it back. Sally said, Finders keepers. She put the money back in the bag and hid it in their attic. The next day, 2 police officers were canvassing the neighborhood looking for the money and knocked on their door. Pardon me, did either of you find a bag that fell out of an armored car yesterday? Sally said, No. Jerry said, She's lying, she hid it up in the attic. Sally said, Don't believe him, he's getting senile. The agents turned to Jerry and began to question him. One said, Tell us the story from the beginning. Jerry said, Well, when Sally and I were walking home from school yesterday, the first police officer turned to his partner and said, We're out of here. A truck driver sees a girl about to jump off a bridge, so he stops. "What are you doing?" he says. "I'm trying to commit suicide," she says. Sleazy driver says with a sly grin, "Well, before you jump, why don't you give me a blowjob?" So she does. After she's finished, the trucker says, "Wow, that's a wasted talent. Why are you committing suicide?" "My parents don't like me dressing up like a girl." So this guy sticks his head into a busy barber shop and goes, "Hey buddy, how long before I can get a haircut?" The barber glances around the packed shop and says, "About 2 hours." The guy nods and walks out. A few days later, the same guy pops his head in again. "How long before I can get a haircut?" Barber looks up from his clippers, scans the room. "Still about 2 hours." Guy leaves. No haircut. Just gone. Then, about a week later, here comes the same dude, pokes his head in and asks, "How long before I can get a haircut?" This time, the barber says, "An hour and a half." The guy? Yep, leaves again. Now, the barber's curious. He turns to his buddy Joey, sitting in the waiting chair, and says, "Hey, Joey, I'll give you a free haircut if you follow that guy and find out where the heck he goes." Joey grins. You got it. About 30 minutes later, Joey comes stumbling back into the shop, wheezing, gasping, laughing so hard he's crying. Barber goes, "What? What's so funny? Where'd he go?" Joey wipes a tear and yells, "To your house!" One morning, a man was quietly reading his newspaper when his wife crept up behind him and whacked him on the back of his head. Shocked, the man asked, "What was that for?" The wife replied, "What was that piece of paper in your pants pocket with the name Mary written on it?" "Oh, honey, remember when I went to the horse races 2 weeks ago? Mary was the name of one of the horses I bet on," the man replied. The wife looked satisfied and apologized before kissing him and walking away. 3 days later, he was sitting in his chair reading again when the wife returned. This time she slapped him across the face. The man held his cheek and asked, "What was that for this time?" The wife answered, "Your horse called." A guy had to ask his neighbor for help getting his new sofa inside the flat because it got stuck in the door. After about 20 minutes of vigorous pushing and maneuvering, the guy pants, "I think we'll have to call it a day. There's no way we're getting it inside." The neighbor looks at him slowly. "Wait, inside?" One night, a man on his way home happened upon a drunk down on his hands and knees searching for something under a streetlight. The man asked the drunk what he was looking for so diligently, and the drunk said he had tripped and his Rolex wristwatch had broken loose from his wrist. The man, being a kind-hearted soul, got down on his hands and knees and began assisting the drunk looking for his watch. After about 10 minutes without any success, the man asked the drunk exactly where he tripped. "About a half a block up the street," the drunk said. "Why, pray tell," the man asked the drunk, "are you looking for your watch here if you lost it a half a block up the street?" The drunk replied, "The light is a lot better here." I think I'm going to lose my driver's license, and all just because of a stupid police officer. The conversation went like this when I got pulled over in my car. Officer: "License and registration, please. I think you were drunk." Me: "I assure you I did not drink anything." Officer: "Okay, let's do a little test. Imagine driving in the dark on a highway at night when you see 2 lights in the distance. What is this?" Me: "A car." Officer: "Of course, but which one? A Mercedes, an Audi, or a Ford?" Me: "I have no idea." Officer: "So you're drunk." Me: "But I didn't drink anything." Officer: "Okay, one more test. Imagine you drive in the dark on a highway at night and there is one light coming at you. What is it?" Me: "A motorcycle." Officer: "Of course, but which one? A Honda, a Kawasaki, or a Harley? Me. I have no idea. Officer. As I suspected, you're drunk. Then I started to get annoyed and asked a counter question. Me. So, counter question, you're driving in the dark on a highway at night and see a woman on the roadside. She wears a miniskirt, fishnet stockings, high-heeled shoes, and only a bra as a top. What is this? Officer. A prostitute, of course. Me. Yes, but which one? Your daughter, your wife, or your mother? Things went downhill from there, and now I have a court date to attend. Once, in the 15th century BC, there lived a pharaoh. And that pharaoh once got a sexually transmitted disease. All the best medics of Egypt tried to cure him, but all have failed. Until one day, an old man told him that in one oasis to the west there is an old sect of priests who know many secrets of medicine. Quickly, the pharaoh ordered his men to go there and bring him sages from that sect. For weeks he waited, until finally the priests stood before him. The priests examined him and said that there is only one thing that can cure him. He must have sexual relations with an 80-year-old virgin. The pharaoh was desperate enough to try. For weeks he suffered as his men scoured Egypt for an 80-year-old virgin. Finally they found one, and they brought her to the pharaoh, and he slept with her. And just like that, his disease was gone. All of them, the woman, the priests, the old man, were generously rewarded with gold. And it wasn't until over 3,000 years later that science had once again discovered the antibacterial properties of penicillin.